Okay, in this module we're going to talk about readiness to effectively deliver services. And this content that's going to be covered in this module is actually beyond the RBT task list 2nd edition and also the test content outline 3rd edition. And I thought I would start this module with a Benjamin Franklin quote. So by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail, really highlighting the necessity of making sure you are ready to effectively deliver services to your clients that you're going to be working with by preparing in enough time and making sure you're ready, as well as making sure they are ready for and set up for success for your session to go smoothly. And really, this preparation can be divided into 3 different sections, and these are all going to be talked about in more depth in future modules, but like I said, can be divided into 3 main categories, which is first, reviewing procedures and prior session documentation. So here it may be things like reading through the programs that you're going to be implementing, making sure you know the current phases of the programs that your client is on, in addition to the future phases of the program if you need to kind of move beyond where they are at currently during your session, making sure you're familiar with the proactive and reactive behavior strategies in a behavior intervention plan. So what happens if the child is engaging in challenging behavior in the moment? What do you need to do, and how you can be proactive in those situations as well so that challenging behavior does not occur. Reading through previous session notes that other team members for your client may have written. It's always good to familiarize yourself with what was happening before you, and any notes from your supervisor. So those are kind of things that you might do within this section of reviewing procedures and prior session documentation. But like I said, that will be talked about in more depth. The next category is preparing the environment and gathering materials. This is, making sure the space is set up for success. You have, an environment that is clean and safe for your client. You have learning materials ready. You have materials ready that are likely to serve as reinforcers for your client, and you're prepared in that manner. And then finally, that third section or category will be making sure your client is ready for services as well. So this includes things like building rapport at the beginning of your session, making sure you're pairing yourself with, fun and reinforcing items and activities, really focusing on approach and engagement from your client, and making sure you're gaining the child's assent when applicable prior to implementing programs in your session as well. But since all of those things are going to be covered in future modules, I wanted to take some time to really go beyond those things and talk about other ways you can make sure you are ready to effectively deliver services. So preparation is key, and my first tip is to make sure you create a game plan. Often this occurs after you have reviewed all of that previous session notes, materials, making sure you reviewed the programming and those phases that your client is currently on. It's important to create a game plan. What is your session going to look like? I don't think it's a great idea to go in totally blind and not have a plan in place. How am I going to start my session? What do I want to target? How am I going to target it? That also kind of relates to getting the materials ready. Like, do I have the necessary materials with me right now so I can target the skills in the way I would want to, or the way that my supervisor has instructed me to? So I think it's really important to create a game plan. Now, I don't think that you need to completely stick to this game plan, like, oh, we said 5 minutes for this program, time to move on. I think there needs to be flexibility within that game plan. But I think it's a good idea to have one to fall back on in case things go awry as well during your session. But having a good idea of the number of programs you want to kind of teach throughout your session, have a good idea of maybe when breaks might happen for your client or for yourself in terms of like your working schedule, times for social activities or social games with peers that might be around as well. Create a game plan that will give you some structure to your session. But again, don't be afraid to be flexible and deviate from this plan as well as you see fit using your clinical judgment. The next tip I have is to make sure you are leaving yourself enough time after you prepare to ask some questions. Sometimes when you review that previous information and documentation, your supervisor may have written some notes or added some new programs for your client, and I think it's important to give yourself enough time to ask some questions, especially if your supervisor is available to talk to. So here you can get any clarification you may need from your supervisor. Ask maybe even other people on the team after you review session notes about how certain programs went for them if you want some more information beyond what's just provided within that session note. So you can ask questions to other team members and supervisors to make sure you're prepared as much as possible. My next tip is to dress for success. And this will totally depend on where you work, and often there's a dress code that is required. My first job in the field, working as a direct interventionist, I wore scrubs, and so that was pretty standard, but I did have to make sure I was ready to wear them for the job as well. Others might have specific shirts you may need to wear, and then other companies or entities might be more flexible with what you need to wear. But my recommendation overall is to make sure you wear something comfortable yet professional, especially if you're working in settings such as like a school setting. Often they will also have their own dress code, and so you need to be respectful of the environment you're working in as well, but still be comfortable and professional in that environment. I would say kind of find some shoes that you can be active in. Make sure, often we're working with young clients or clients that engage in challenging behavior, and you need to be ready to move and be comfortable in shoes that you can kind of walk around in, easily move in, maybe have some fun in, run around. And then I would also say find some clothes that you can easily, sit down, stand up, move around as well, similar to the shoes, but like something you can move in without it being, too much of a hassle. And then clothes you potentially don't mind getting dirty or messy. I have ruined several pairs of jeans with dry erase marker. That does not come out. Actually, permanent marker comes out a bit easier than dry erase marker. So I have ruined some clothes totally accidentally. It's not like the client did anything, but I was, trying to write on a dry erase board. I marked on my jeans, or was holding the marker weird, marked on my jeans. I would say dress for success and find some clothes that you also don't mind getting dirty as well. You also might be doing some things like crafts, playing outside. You might get dirty, and so, be able to wear something that you don't mind that as well. And then my last tip in preparing for your session and make sure you're ready to effectively deliver those services is to find your fun. This can be a hard job, especially if you're working with clients who engage in really high levels of challenging behavior, but it's also an extremely rewarding and fun job. And I would encourage everyone to find what they find reinforcing and fun within the job. So a lot of times, this can just be, watching your client learn and, engage in new skills, and you find that reinforcing, and that happens naturally within the job, so that's really great. But there's also other ways to build in activities that you enjoy within your session that could also lead to more learning opportunities and ways to target important skills for your client. So this could be incorporating, song and music into different activities. And of course, you can work on a ton of skills within musical activities. You can work on imitation. You can work on, peer joint attention between friends, following instructions with music as well. There's tons of, especially for our younger clients, tons of songs and dances that they can work on those things as well. It could be doing things like arts and crafts. Again, you can work on skills such as imitation, instruction following. It could be playing board games or social games with your client. These are great ways to target play and social skills. And of course, these activities should be systematic, and you can build that into your game plan and can be used to target relevant skills for your client. But it's also a great way to expand reinforcing repertoire for your clients, work on reinforcement, and building up exposure to new activities and interests as well. So I think it's important to, again, create a game plan. Make sure you're giving yourself enough time to ask questions, make sure you're dressed for success, and make sure to find your fun within the job as well. Thank you.